Chapter 3. Isolated and Modernized Swiss. To explore the potential benefits of high-altitude foods on health, including reduced rates of diseases like tooth decay, I conducted studies in Switzerland during 1931 and 1932. My aim was to find groups of Swiss living in isolated environments, relying mostly on locally produced foods. Swiss government officials helped identify a group living in the Loetschental Valley, accessible due to the Loetschental Tunnel and a new railroad built just below a mile above sea level. This group, comprising about 2,000 people, produced nearly all their necessities locally, except for a few items like sea salt, for centuries. Aerial view of the Loetschental Valley entrance is shown in Figure 1. The valley has a history dating back over a dozen centuries. The architecture of their wooden buildings, some centuries old, shows a preference for simple, stable designs that are practical and efficient. Carved into the heavy timber beams, both inside and outside the buildings, are artistically designed mottos that express devotion to cultural and spiritual values rather than material ones. Despite numerous attempts, these people have never been conquered, even though outsiders have tried to invade the valley. The valley is almost entirely surrounded by 3 high mountain ranges, usually snow-capped, with the only opening being a rugged gorge through which the river flows down to the Rhone Valley. This pass could be defended by a small group against any attackers, as artificial landslides could easily be triggered. The valley's early legends describe these mountains as the boundaries of the universe, and the valley's vast glacier as the edge of the world. The glacier in the Loetschental Valley branches off from a vast ice field extending west and south from the Jungfrau and Mönch ice cap. These mountains are rarely approached from this direction due to dangerous ice fields. The usual way to access them is via Interlaken through the Lauterbrunnen or Grindelwald valleys. At the altitude of the Loetschental Valley, winters are long and summers short but beautiful, with rapid and lush growth. The meadows are filled with alpine flowers, including violets resembling pansies, which bloom in deep hues throughout the summer. The people of the Loetschental Valley form a community of 2,000 who have lived a largely self-sufficient life. They have no need for physicians or dentists, nor do they require police or jails. Their clothing is made from the substantial homespun wool of their sheep. The valley produces nearly everything needed for both clothing and food. The people here boast some of the finest physiques in Europe, evidenced by the fact that many Swiss guards at the Vatican in Rome, celebrated worldwide and a source of Swiss pride, are chosen from this and other alpine valleys. Every boy in Loetschental aspires to become a Vatican guard. Despite tuberculosis being Switzerland's most serious health concern, a recent inspection of the valley revealed no cases, according to a government official who assisted in my studies in Switzerland, including the Reverend John Zegan, pastor of the valley's church. The people live in villages scattered along the valley floor beside the river. The land, used mainly for hay to feed cattle in winter and rye for human consumption, rises steeply toward the mountain slopes, which are forested with timber crucial for protection against natural hazards. The valley's forests have been meticulously guarded because they are essential in preventing snow and rock slides that could endanger and destroy the villages. The valley boasts a robust educational system that alternates between theory and practical work. All children attend school for 6 months each year, and spend the other 6 months assisting with farming and dairy work, which involves both young and old of both sexes. The school system is overseen by the Catholic Church and is highly effective. Girls are also taught skills such as weaving, dyeing, and garment making, while wool and clothing manufacturing are the primary home tasks for women in winter. The valley lacks trucks, horses, wagons, and even tractors for transporting goods up and down the mountainsides. Everything is carried on human backs, indicative of the exceptional strength of the people. My primary focus here was on the teeth quality and facial development associated with their remarkable health and physique. During the summer of 1931, I studied adults and growing boys and girls, arranging to receive samples of food, particularly dairy products, twice a month in summer and winter. These products were found to have high vitamin and mineral contents, especially fat-soluble activators, far exceeding those found in commercial dairy products in America, Europe, and lower areas of Switzerland. Hay is harvested for winter cattle feed and grows rapidly. Chemical analysis in my laboratory showed this hay to be of exceptional quality for grazing and storing. Almost every household keeps goats or cows, which in summer seek higher pastures as the snow retreats, leaving the lower valley free for hay and rye harvesting. Soil is tilled by hand, as there are no plows or draft animals, in preparation for the next year's rye crop. Some garden produce is grown, primarily green foods for summer use. Cows spend the warm summer on verdant knolls and wooded slopes near glaciers and perpetual snowfields, producing rich milk vital to summer's harvest. While men and boys gather hay and rye, women and children collect milk, making and storing cheese for the following winter. This cheese, containing natural butter fat and minerals from the milk, serves as a life-sustaining resource during winter. Dr. Zegan taught me much about the life and customs of the valley's people, including their worship of the life-giving qualities of butter made in June when cows graze near glaciers. This worship involves lighting a wick in a bowl of the first butter made after cows reach summer pastures, allowed to burn in a special sanctuary built for this purpose. Valley natives recognize the superior quality of their June butter, paying it due homage without fully understanding why. The nutrition of Loetschental Valley people, particularly growing boys and girls, mainly consists of a slice of whole rye bread and a piece of summer-made cheese, eaten with fresh goat or cow milk. Meat is consumed about once a week. Given our current knowledge of activating substances like vitamins and food's relative value in providing minerals for bodybuilding, it is evident why they have healthy bodies and sound teeth. The average fat-soluble activator and mineral intake of calcium and phosphorus in these children far exceeds that of the average American child. Their sturdy health allows children to play bareheaded and barefoot in glacier-fed waters during late evening breezes, a time when we wore overcoats, gloves, and button collars. Among children in the valley still using a simple diet of whole rye bread and dairy, the average number of cavities per person was 0.3, and on average, it took examining 3 people to find one with a defective deciduous or permanent tooth. These children were aged between 7 and 16. Those lucky enough to be in the valley in early August can witness the earnestness with which people celebrate their national holiday, a sight worth remembering. These celebrations end with mountaineers gathering on crags and promontories, where large bonfires are lit from fuel amassed and built into mounds to create huge torchlights. At a set hour, these bonfires are lit from end to end of the valley, signifying to mountaineers on distant crags that others are also marking their sacred consecration with a song that says, "One for all and all for one." This sentiment has become deeply embedded in the people's souls, explaining why doors do not need to be locked in the Loetschental Valley. These souls' level of life and horizon is vastly different from those in many so-called civilized places, where people have degraded themselves to the point where life holds no interest in values beyond gold or profit, even if it means harming or destroying others. One must wonder if there is something in the life-giving vitamins and minerals of their food that not only builds robust physical structures, but also minds and hearts capable of a higher form of manhood, where material values are secondary to individual character. In the following chapters, we will see evidence supporting this notion. Our quest has been for information on body health, tooth perfection, and normal face and dental arch development, aiming to uncover the secret of such excellent bodybuilding and learn how nutrition from this valley can strengthen all people, protecting them from mankind's most common disease, tooth decay and its consequences. These studies involved examining teeth, photographing subjects, recording extensive data, collecting food samples for chemical analysis, and gathering detailed daily menu information. Saliva samples were also collected for chemical analysis, testing my newly developed method to estimate a person's level of immunity to dental caries at a specific time. This procedure will be detailed in later chapters. Saliva samples were preserved by adding formalin equivalent to 1% of the sample volume. These children will hopefully be re-examined in the coming years for comparative studies on the effects of changes in local nutrition programs. Some changes are already underway, such as a modern bakery offering white bread and various white flour products that was fully operational by 1932. I asked many people about the most favorable districts for further studies of groups living in protected isolation due to their physical environment and decided to study specific high alpine valleys. Between the Rhone Valley and Italy in 1932, the canton of Wallis is bordered by French-speaking people to the west, Italian-speaking to the south, and German-speaking to the east and north. In Wallis, I was guided and assisted by Dr. Alfred Jaisai and Dr. Adolf Roos through parts of the territory. Our first expedition took us into the valley of the Visp, a grand gorge extending southward from the Rhone River. It divides into two gorges, one leading to the Saas-Fee region and the other to the vicinity of the Matterhorn. The Matterhorn, with its almost spire-like pinnacle rising above the surrounding snow-capped mountains, is one of the mightiest and most sublime spectacles in the world. It was one of the last mountains in Europe to be scaled by humans. One cannot truly appreciate the majesty of the Alps without seeing the Matterhorn. We departed from the mountain railroad at St. Nicholas, which uses a cog system for many of its grades. From there, we ascended the mountain trail to Gren, an isolated settlement on the east bank of the Mattervisp River. It was a 5-hour journey to this settlement, which sits on a shelf high above the river, exposed to southern sunshine and enjoying a unique physical isolation. An examination of the children in Gren showed that only 2.3 teeth out of every 100 had been affected by tooth decay. The hardiness of the people was exemplified by a 62-year-old woman we encountered, who carried an enormous load of rye on her back at an altitude of about 5,000 feet. She was extraordinarily well developed and preserved. Her grandchildren, whom she showed us, also exhibited fine physiques and facial developments. Rye is highly valued in Gren. During transport, the rye heads are protected by wrapping them in canvas to ensure not a single kernel is lost. The rye is thrashed by hand and ground in stone mills, which were traditionally hand-turned but now use water turbines for grinding. Each household exclusively uses whole rye flour. The community bake oven, where a month's supply of whole rye bread is baked at one time for each family, plays a crucial role. In the summer, the cows pasture near the glaciers, leaving the village free for hay and rye harvesting. At an altitude of about 5,000 feet, the church at Gren, built several hundred years ago, stands prominently. We received valuable assistance from the local priest, who provided facilities in his spacious and well-kept rooms for our studies of the children. From Gren, we returned to St. Nicholas and proceeded by train down the valley and then up another steep ascent to the hamlet of Visperterminen on the east side of the mountain above the Visp River. This community, with about 1,600 people, resides on a sheltered shelf high above the river valley. The view from this vantage point is indescribably beautiful, just below the timberline of this and the surrounding mountains. Majestic snow-clad peaks and precipitous mountains mark the horizon, with winding gorges below. In the summer, the climate in Visperterminen ranges from tropical temperatures in protected areas during the day to sub-zero weather and raging blizzards on the high mountains at night. It's a place where human endurance can be honed to meet all of life's challenges. The village is characterized by Swiss chalets clustered on the mountainside, with the church standing out as a beacon visible from all directions. Visperterminen is unique, enjoying isolation despite its proximity to civilization, a few hours' journey to the Rhone Valley. We were welcomed by the village president, who graciously opened the schoolhouse and sent messengers to gather the children for our studies. Our study included physical examinations of the children's teeth, general development, especially of their faces and dental arches, photographic records, saliva samples, and a detailed study of their nutrition, including food samples for chemical analysis. The people of Visperterminen have a unique distinction of owning vineyards on the lower part of the mountain, producing wine for the country. These are Europe's highest vineyards, grown on steep banks where soil erosion is managed by trenches and soil is carried back in baskets, all done by human labor. The vineyards provide additional nutrition from wine and fruit minerals and vitamins, which are not available to the groups we studied in Loetschental and Gren. Interestingly, despite this additional nutrition, the incidence of tooth decay in Visperterminen was not lower. For every 100 teeth examined, 5.2 had been affected by tooth decay. Their nutrition primarily consists of rye, dairy products, meat about once a week, and some potatoes. Limited green foods are eaten in the summer. Families share sheep, with the bones and scraps used to make soups served during the week. Children drink goat's milk in the summer when cows are in the higher pastures near the snow line. Members of the families also go to the higher pastures with the cows to make cheese for winter use. The village president uses tessels, wooden and leather mannequins, to identify goats or cattle for individual ownership. Each stock owner provides a mannequin with individual markings, which are registered with the president. Animals with these markings are owned by the registered person. This system ensures clarity despite the common herds. One cannot help but admire the stalwart physical development and high moral character of these sturdy mountaineers. They exhibit superior manhood, womanhood, and childhood, developed on a suitable diet and in a suitable environment. This is evidence enough to answer the question of whether cereals should be avoided due to acids produced in the system, which may cause tooth decay and other illnesses, including acidity of blood or saliva. We had the experience of examining young men and women who had a period of rampant tooth decay, which suddenly ceased, though some teeth were lost. When asked, they reported leaving the mountains at 18 or 20 and returning after a year or two. They had never had a decayed tooth before leaving or after returning, but lost teeth during their absence. At this point, Dr. Roos had to leave, but Dr. Jisai continued with us to the Aniviers Valley on the south side of the Rhone. The valley's river, the Navazens, flows from the High Swiss and Italian boundary to the North Rhone River. Here, we found communities near each other, one with high immunity to tooth decay and the other with rampant tooth decay. Air, a village in a beautiful valley toward the glaciers, is largely primitive, though a government road has recently been developed. A few hours away, the Rhone Valley's highway has not yet reached it. In this beautiful hamlet, we found a high immunity to dental caries. Only 2.3 teeth out of each 100 examined were affected by tooth decay. The people here lived on rye and dairy products. We wondered if history would repeat itself in the next few years, and if their immunity would be lost. Since a road was built to Vissoy, modern foods have been available for some time. One can likely walk the hour from Air to Vissoy. The incidence of tooth decay among children examined in Vissoy was found to be 20.2 teeth per 100, compared to 2.3 in Air. This provided us with an excellent opportunity to study the changes in nutritional habits. With the advent of transportation and access to new markets, modern white flour, bakery equipment for white flour products, and highly sweetened fruits such as jams, marmalades, and syrups were shipped in. These goods were exchanged for locally produced high-vitamin dairy products, mineral-rich cheese, and rye. The premiums from these exchanges provided enough money to purchase machine-made clothing and various novelties that soon became necessities. Each valley or village has its own special feast days, with athletic contests as the main events. Historically, these feasts centered largely around dairy products. Athletes were provided with large bowls of cream, a popular and healthful beverage, and special cheese was always available. Wine was rarely used due to the absence of grapes in the valley, and the isolation of the people prevented access to materials for wine production. However, in the Visperterminen community, their vineyards on the lower mountain slopes provided grape juice in various stages of fermentation. Their feasts included wines of rare vintage, as well as cream and other dairy products, which served as a substitute for modern ice cream. It was of great interest to see the tankards that had been in use in that community for 9 or 10 centuries, cared for by the village president as one of his many responsibilities. It is reported that practically all skulls exhumed in the Rhone Valley, and indeed throughout Switzerland where graves have existed for more than 100 years, show relatively perfect teeth. In contrast, recently buried individuals have been riddled with caries or have lost teeth due to the disease. Each church usually has an associated cemetery where graves are decorated with fresh or artificial flowers. Generations of families are said to be buried one above the other to a depth of many feet. After a sufficient number of generations, their bodies are exhumed to make room for present and future generations. These skeletons are usually preserved with honor and deference. In Naders, there is such a group said to contain 20,000 skeletons and skulls. These were studied with great interest, as was a smaller collection connected to the cathedral at Visp. Although many single, straight-rooted teeth were lost during handling, many were still present. It was important to note that only a small percentage of teeth showed signs of caries. Teeth attacked by deep caries had developed apical abscesses, resulting in the destruction of the alveolar processes. Evidence of this bone change was readily visible, and sockets of missing teeth still had continuous walls, indicating that the teeth were vital at death. One might find it hard to believe that such marked differences in facial structure, dental arch shape, and tooth health exist when moving from the highly modernized lower valleys and plains of Switzerland to the isolated high valleys. Figure 3 shows 4 girls with typically broad dental arches and a regular arrangement of teeth. These girls were born and raised in the Loetschental Valley or other isolated Swiss valleys, which provide excellent nutrition. They were taught little about the use of toothbrushes, and their teeth showed typical deposits of unscrubbed mouths. Yet, they were almost completely free from dental caries, as were others in their group. In a study of 4,280 teeth from children in these high valleys, only 3.4% were found to have been attacked by tooth decay. This is in stark contrast to the conditions found in modernized areas using modern foods. In Loetschental, Gren, Visperterminen, and Air, we found communities of native Swiss living almost exclusively on locally produced foods, rice cereal, and various forms of milk. At Visoi, with its modern nutrition, there has been a complete change in dental caries immunity. It is important to study other communities at similar altitudes to the first 4 places we studied, where there was high dental caries immunity. Modern food should be available in these selected communities for comparative study. Places like St. Moritz, a world-famous health resort, would naturally come to mind. It is located in the southeastern part of Switzerland, near the headwaters of the Danube in the Upper Engadin. This famous resort attracts people from all continents for health building in both summer and winter, as well as for enjoyment of the mountain lakes, snow-capped peaks, forested mountain slopes, and crystal-clear atmosphere with abundant sunshine. The journey from the canton of Wallis to the Upper Engadin takes you up the Rhone Valley, continually climbing to get above cascades and beautiful waterfalls until you reach the Great Rhone Glacier, which blocks the end of the valley. Water gushes from beneath the mountain of ice to become the parent stream of the Rhone River, which flows westward through the Rhone Valley, receiving tributaries from snow-fed streams from both the north and south watersheds, as it heads west to beautiful Lake Geneva and then onward to the Mediterranean. A study of child life in the Rhone Valley, conducted by Swiss officials and reported by Dr. Adolf Roos and his colleagues, shows that practically every child had tooth decay, with the majority having decay in an advanced form. The valley residents have adequate railroad transportation to bring them the world's luxuries. As we pass eastward over the pass through Andermatt, we are reminded of the trains of the St. Gotthard Tunnel, which thunder through the mountain a mile below our feet en route to Italy. To reach our destination, the beautiful modern city and summer resort of St. Moritz, we enter the Engadin, famous for its beauty and crystal-clear atmosphere. We already know something of the beauty that awaits us, which has attracted pleasure seekers and beauty lovers from around the world to St. Moritz. One would not expect to see such a modern city at an altitude of just over a mile, with little else to attract people except its climate in winter and summer, magnificent scenery, and clear atmosphere. We have moved from communities where almost everyone wears homespun clothing to one where English walking coats and the most elegant feminine attire are common. Everyone shows the effect of cultural contact. The hotels, in their appointments and design, remind one of Atlantic City. Immediately, one notices that the children do not have the splendidly developed features, and the people do not exhibit the great physical reserve present in the smaller communities. Thanks to the kindness of Dr. William Barry, a local dentist, and the superintendent of public schools, we were invited to use one of the school buildings for our studies of the children. The summer classes were dismissed with instructions to keep the children for our study. Several factors were immediately apparent. The teeth were shining and clean, showing the thoroughness of the instructions in the use of modern toothpaste for effective oral hygiene. The gums looked better, and the teeth were more beautiful for having the debris and deposits removed. Surely, this superb climate and magnificent setting, combined with the best findings of modern prophylactic science, should provide 100% immunity to tooth decay. But in a study of children aged 8 to 15, 29.8% of teeth had already been attacked by dental caries. Our study of each case included a careful examination of the mouth, photographing of the face and teeth, obtaining samples of saliva for chemical analysis, and studying the nutrition program followed by each child. In most cases, the diet was strikingly modern, and the only children found without tooth decay were those eating natural foods, whole rye bread and plenty of milk. Chapter 15 presents a detailed discussion of the chemical differences in food constituents in both immunity and susceptibility districts. I was informed by a former resident of the Upper Engadin that just a few decades ago, children in one of the isolated valleys were still bringing their lunches to school in the form of roasted rye, carried dry in their pockets. Their ancestors had eaten cereal in this dry form for centuries. St. Moritz is a typical alpine community with a physical setting similar to that in the cantons of Bern and Wallis. However, it is provided with modern nutrition, including an abundance of white flour products, marmalades, jams, canned vegetables, confections, and fruits, all transported to the district. Only a limited supply of vegetables is grown locally. We studied some children here whose parents maintained their primitive food selection methods, and without exception, those immune to dental caries were eating a distinctly different diet from those with high susceptibility to dental caries. Switzerland has been particularly diligent in studying and documenting the prevalence of dental caries across its regions. In the northeastern section near Lake Constance, an area reports 100% of its population suffering from dental caries. In other densely populated parts of Switzerland, 95 to 98% of the population faces dental caries. In two remaining districts, the rate ranges from 85 to 95%. Given the high incidence near Lake Constance, a critical study was conducted there. Samples of saliva were collected, along with detailed information about food habits, and physical examinations were performed on children. Dr. Hans Eggenberger, Director of Public Health for the district, facilitated this study in Harrisau, Canton of St. Gall. Children from various institutions were included, and their health was supported with outdoor treatments, fresh air, and sunshine. Dental caries, likely a nutritional issue, was treated with sunlight. Children in both boys and girls groups participated in suitable sports under skilled trainers. These groups had different locations in the city with open lawns and wooded knolls for recreation. This environment helped build healthy appetites for their institutional food, mostly from a modern menu. Dental exams showed that 1/4 of the teeth of these children were affected by caries, and only 4% were unaffected. In Harrisau, 25.5% of 2,065 teeth examined had dental caries, with many teeth showing abscesses. Photos in Figure 4 show two girls with severe tooth decay. One, aged 16, has several permanent teeth decayed to the gum line. Similar cases were found in other groups, with noticeable irregularities in teeth and facial features in lower valley groups compared to isolated groups. Mouth breathers were more common among children in the lower plains group. Many individuals in modernized districts had facial scars from infected teeth that had broken through to the surface, resulting in permanent deformities. Conditions in these districts, though bad, were reported to be better than average. The widespread prevalence of dental caries was evident among local and traveling populations. In St. Moritz, some children had notably better teeth due to their diet, such as dark bread, oatmeal porridge, and liberal milk consumption. Interestingly, cows were rarely seen in Swiss plains where a large part of the population resides. This is because cows are kept in stables for higher milk production, especially during crop growth when fences are scarce. Few children in St. Moritz and Herisau consumed milk, in contrast to other districts where milk was part of their diet and provided immunity to dental caries. It was previously thought that dental caries in Switzerland was linked to iodine deficiency in cattle feed and soil, but this has not been proven. Despite iodine reinforcement in diets, dental caries remains widespread, similar to previous times. Concerned officials in Herisau are implementing programs to curb dental caries. Heliotherapy, used to tan children for vitamin D reinforcement, is also being explored. Adding lime-rich products to bread in the district foothills did not reduce tooth decay clinically. Efforts were made to establish a clinic in a neighboring town to show that dental caries can be controlled with a simple nutritional program. Some parents, however, suggested extracting girls' teeth and providing artificial teeth before marriage. Switzerland's southern part, including the high alpine region, is granite, while the northern hills are limestone. The fertile plain between these geological formations has supported a healthy population. According to government officials, dental caries is the most prevalent and serious disease in Switzerland, followed by tuberculosis. Dr. Rollier in Lausanne, Switzerland, has achieved remarkable results with heliotherapy in treating non-pulmonary tuberculosis among patients, mostly from Swiss plains and other countries. Dental caries and tuberculosis are often associated in Switzerland, as in other parts of the world. Studies in Switzerland show that isolated groups relying on locally produced natural foods have almost complete natural immunity to dental caries. Replacing these with modern diets destroys this immunity, even in ideal districts like St. Moritz or fertile plains. Laboratory analyses identify factors in foods responsible for immunity to dental caries. High immunity to dental caries, healthy dental arches, and sturdy physiques were associated with physical isolation and limited food selection. This included a generous use of dairy products, whole rye bread, and weekly meat consumption. Individuals in modern districts, however, showed widespread tooth decay, dental arch deformities, and susceptibility to diseases due to refined cereals, high sweets intake, and reduced dairy use.